Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hey, there you go. So trust you all had an enjoyable lunch. We had some interesting sessions this morning, so we're going to continue this, taking a different approach to maybe looking at what's coming down the road and how we're going to gear up for the future. Ports are, of course, complex operations that are connected by multiple modes of transportation, including water, rail, and road. And this interconnected ecosystem is evolving with the adaptation of new technologies and improved processes. So making sure that we can continue to meet the customer demands and the needs of the future will be essential to the connectivity and long-term sustainability for finished vehicle logistics networks. So we're going to take a look at what's happening in the future, and also some of the initiatives that the different parties are working on. We've lined up a great panel of speakers for today, and we're going to kick this off firstly by introducing Travis Black from the Strong Ports Community Planner from the Department of Transport from the Maritime Administration. So Travis, firstly, I'd like to welcome you onto the stage. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present today. The U.S. Department of Transportation has a mode called the Maritime Administration, which I work for. And the mission of the organization, or at least the program that I work in, is to lead the development and expansion and modernization of port infrastructure, including water, road, rail, for the benefit of every American. The Maritime Administration has a few additional things that you may be aware of. They have a Kings Point Merchant Marine Academy. We manage the Ready Reserve Fleet. We also manage the Cargo Preference group, but I'm in the Ports and Waterways Planning group, and our job is to assist in making sure that the ports are as modern and efficient as possible. And we also work with a Marine Highway program where we support container on barge and unitized services on the inland waterway system. One product that may apply specifically to you as you work with your ports could be a product that we did with Kurt Nagel's organization, the American Association of Port Authorities. That's a port planning and investment toolkit. And this toolkit includes a collection of best practices and tools that ports can use to develop investment-grade infrastructure improvements, plans, and projects, guiding them through the process to help them navigate the complexities that keep some of the projects from happening. And this is a link to that, the toolkit itself. I wanted to specifically talk about the Intelligent Transportation System. And I wanted to provide a little bit of history about what that means or what that is. From 1980 to 2010, the demand for the use of roads increased approximately 95% across the country, as measured in vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. Over this same time, the number of lane miles on public roads only increased by 9%. Intelligent transportation systems apply a variety of technologies to monitor, evaluate, and manage transportation systems to enhance efficiency and safety. ITS offers a wide variety of management and operation tools to address increasing demand while enhancing safety and using technology to maximize the facility throughput. When roadway planners began to address increasing commuter travel and system congestion during the 1980s and early 1990s, technology advances in computing and communication enabled the development of applications that spawned the modern ITS programs. The earliest the federal government got involved was in 1988, and the Federal Highway Administration convened a group called Mobility 2000. It was a work group focused on developing a national program of automated technology, and the group brought together public, private, and academic representatives to explore and promote the application of advanced technologies. In 1991, the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act, which is the highway funding bill legislation, it authorized and encouraged new technologies to improve safety information exchange, system capacity, and travel times. These initiatives spawned the development of ITS and technology applications from the foundation, and they form the foundation of the ITS program in the United States. The U.S. DOT's ITS program is structured to meet a wide variety of user needs through ITS strategies and technologies. Advances in ITS development include expanded multimodal applications such as transit operations, intermodal and commercial vehicle operations, integrated traveler information, etc. These applications support a system across the different surface transportation modes, and they rely on some of the newer technologies over the last decade have been mostly centered around safety, operations, environmental issues, collision avoidance, driver assistance, and collision notification. The national ITS architecture provides the support and guidance for ITS expansion, and this increased focus on performance measures and systems changed the role of ITS in two fundamental different ways. First, ITS offers greater system efficiencies with potentially smaller investment than capacity expansion. In other words, our capacity, as is shown in this, on the system has not really increased at nearly the rate of the demand. And second, ITS is built on a collection, exchange, and evaluation of management and operations data. So it's becoming much more data intensive. This data will be critical to any performance-based system. ITS infrastructure and personnel are uniquely positioned to support data-driven performance-based policies and processes. The Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, which is the most recent transportation legislation signed into law in December 2015, requires states and metropolitan planning organizations to set performance targets and to report annually on their progress. The integration of management and operations into regional and statewide planning requires coordination in regional ITS architecture with collaboration from multiple jurisdictions. This graphic just demonstrates the architecture view of ITS. This is kind of an ITS 101. I call it more than you want to know. It just shows the different levels in the architecture, and but it's focused on three primary areas: communication, transportation, institutional, and all these create efficiency and safety opportunities. Just the early adopters of the private sector look towards ITS and telecommunication innovations for support of their business objectives. Not all of this was on purpose. There was the greatest leap in trucking efficiency and profitability was a spinoff from a marketing experiment. At the end of the 1980s, a major electronics and microchip company developed integrated satellite location determination and fleet management technology for the trucking industry. And they were able to lead it to assist them in tracking their, they had better driver satisfaction, operating efficiencies, truck maintenance management, etc. It also led to over-the-road driver interest and satisfaction. It decreased the ratios of dropped empty to loaded miles. Also, the empty to loaded miles ratios plummeted and driver turnover shrank. This is also something that is instrumental in the FRADIS system, which is Freight Advanced Travel Information System, which is a private information. It's excuse me. It's an integrated data source that feed into information so that they can maximize the efficiencies in and around a port. It's basically taking the same concept and applying it to publicly available software, and can be utilized with private software as well. In the last 5 years, technology breakthroughs have shaped the evolution of ITS in significant ways. We've gradually transitioned from building nationwide vehicle-to-infrastructure and vehicle-to-vehicle systems rather, we're moving more towards endorsing and pilot testing of connected vehicles in field tests. I'm getting a little bit low on time. I'm going to hurry through some of these slides, but there's been a shift where we've had flat resources, and we're seeing more of the private sector data gathering, crowdsourcing, and information that has led to the ability to rely less on the infrastructure and more on data as a whole. But we need to manage the opportunities of this technology. You're seeing a lot of safety improvements that will be manifest as compared to the regular drivers. The Maritime Administration recently entered into with the U.S. Department of Transportation has a ITS office that's housed at the Federal Highway. They've recently reached out to the other modes, and we are doing cooperation with them to increase the utilization of ITS in and around ports and in the maritime environment. The first step that we've taken in 2015 was to do a business case assessment where we're looking to see what is being used today at the ports. We're doing 4 business cases that this study will be finished in this fall in September, October. We're looking to do business case assessments of the truck appointment systems, a port community system, this ATMS IS Freightus, which is the system that I talked about earlier, which coordinates drayage and other information in a port, and then also queue detection systems. We hope to release this study in December of this 2017. We also have a program called the Advanced Transportation Congestion Management Technologies Program. It goes with the FAST Act, and there are $60 million per year that are given to help entities to accelerate the implementation of ITS. We also, working with the USDOT ITS Joint Program Office, they've recently released a 2015 to 2019 strategic plan that looks to prioritize ITS research and progress in the USDOT. What we're trying to do is basically establish a baseline to guide our research in the port maritime area. We know, or we've currently identified truck staging as a need, but we'll be doing pilots over the next few years to test applications in the ports. We'll also be working with AAPA to develop a module in our toolkit that will explain ITS and help with the implementation of that. The ITS JPO is very interested in connected vehicles, and so you're seeing a lot of their focus on connected vehicles. I just wanted to go through real quickly just some of the progress they've made. The NHTSA in September last year, they established a policy that adopts the SEA standard definition of levels of automation for actions of the U.S. Department of Transportation. So these are looking at autonomous vehicles and what their characteristics are. There are a lot of definitions around that needed to be clarified, and so you'll see these different levels of automation as time moves forward. But with the autonomous laws, there's a lot of fear and rightly so that what is allowed and what's not allowed on the roadway system. There are 19 autonomous vehicle laws from different states, along with some executive orders, and basically they focus on testing of autonomous vehicles, the use of autonomous vehicles by the public, and testing of driverless vehicles, and also, of course, operation without drivers. Some states require a special license, and others require black boxes. What are we talking about for things that we'll see in the near future? I think some of the challenges is the perception of those autonomous vehicles. The human factors are going to play a big role. What you're going to see more is what the picture on the top, where you're going to see basically that would be an engaged driver who's monitoring, and the vehicle probably would be able to notify the driver that they need to re-engage. But how quickly does the driver need to re-engage? Is it 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 8 seconds? For highway speeds, a second is 88 feet. And so we really have a lot of work to do before everything can be worked out. But we need to understand what the cognitive state of the driver is at any given time, and do they need any alert, help be an alert. Here are some other questions. We know that there's a lot of movement for NHTSA to be mandating guidance. FMCSA, which is the Federal Motor Carriers, they have hours of service requirements. There's a lot of questions about if we have connected vehicles, could these vehicles give rest periods that would be accounted for in their hours of service. Anyway, these are just a few of the issues that I wanted to bring up. And just to bring to your attention, but to let you know that we are working as a Department of Transportation to further the work along and bring those ITS solutions to the port environment. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. Thanks. Thank you very much, Travis. I think there's some interesting developments there, intelligent transport systems, automation, whether it's in cars, whether it's in trucks. There's potentially future of what we need to consider in gearing up for the future. So I'd like to introduce now Tian Bin Quinn, also known as TQ, from CIO from Ports America.
Good afternoon. So I'm TQ from Ports America. This is actually the first time to this conference. It's just a great venue, great speakers, and I love the mobile app. And one thing I'm really impressed is all the panel speakers as well as the connections I just made this morning. Everybody demonstrated so much knowledge about IT. Yeah, that's actually the future, right? You look at the CIO role in the past, just focus on IT infrastructure. But nowadays, with all the digital innovation going on, with the whole big data analytics going on, right? What we are seeing is IT leader become business leader. In the meantime, all the sales, operational leaders are become IT leaders, right? That's really the future. How do we take all this, drive real operational improvement, and create more value proposition for customers? So, that's the green button. So I think a lot of folks already talked this morning, right? I think we should add one more. I learned from Kurt's presentation, digital war. That should be part of the technology that's popping up. But it is true. Nowadays, there are so many new things come along, right? You have cloud, mobility. The mobility here is not the Brandon talk about the general vehicle mobility. This is really the mobile app, right? Nowadays, more and more applications. There's no web interface anymore. Just go to mobile directly. The Internet of Things, obviously self-driving vehicle, the whole machine learning analytics, virtual reality, blockchain, 3D printing, so on and so forth. Last but not least, cybersecurity. It is starting to impact our industry big time lately. And all this is really, in some ways, dazzling. It feels like every week there's a new technology popping up. I think a lot of them are come and go. There are a lot of hypes, right, right now, but many of these technologies will stay and make a permanent impact in our personal life and the business model. That's just the reality we are facing today. Introduced by all these technologies, when you take it combined with business model, it becomes something called digital disruption. Everybody heard of that. It's real. Digital disruption today already impacted retail industry big time. Car rental, taxi industry, right? Vacation rental. now is also coming to many other industries. And two of them, one is the automobile industry, right? Tesla, auto-driving vehicle, the whole mobility environment Brandon talked about in the morning, is coming. And the boundary between traditional auto OEM and the digital companies are starting to get really blurred, right? They're merging together. On the logistic industry side, the digital disruption is also coming. This is a statistic, McKinsey has a statistic talk about this record amount of venture capital money coming to logistics today. A lot of people see the inefficiency in the industry. They saw this as an opportunity. It's pouring in. The VC amount in logistic industry is on par with financial tech and health tech. That's just how hard it is, right? Morgan Stanley just come up with a new report early in the year. Their claim is, their observation is all these venture capital money are betting that this small software startup will learn to do logistics, become a logistic company faster than the mature logistic companies learn how to do software. So it's a lot of the challenges and opportunities. And I have to say, for everyone in the room, congratulations, right? Because we are sitting right in the middle, the intersection of the two industries that's about to be disrupted and transformed by all these digital forces. So when I go to these kind of conferences, one of the questions I got asked most is, TQ, tell me what's changing, right? What's the new technology tomorrow? I think another equally interesting question that rarely got asked is what's not going to change? Because to me, is sometimes you make the bet on the new things, you made the wrong bet, then the whole return is not there, we're going to get messed up, right? However, if we know what's not changing, you build every effort, infrastructure, initiative around those things are not changing, we know we'll be in good shape over time. So imagine 5 years from now, a customer come to me, say, TQ, we love Post America's service, it's great. By the way, the price is too low. Can you jack the price, please? Anyone think that will happen? Please raise the green tag. Yeah. Right? And all the customers, we know that, they want a faster turnaround time. They want a higher quality. There's nothing more sacred in this industry than quality. Right? Quality is life. I spent 11 years as an auto industry chip supplier in semiconductor. I learned the lesson there. Then obviously, many speakers already talked to the better availability on the supply chain side. So if we just focus, right, I know it's dazzling, all these things, everything changing, but we step back, we focus our efforts on those things that will not change. I think everyone in the room will be in good shape. So before I talk about our perspective on tomorrow, let's talk about today. Okay, I think today, around the country, in many of the terminals, not necessarily every terminal, but certainly some of the leading terminals, we have a lot of things going on. Right? Let's talk about those things that are not changing. On the terminal productivity improvement, yeah, Patrick today talked a lot about the whole PACS, right? How do you design things right? Here at Post America, we do the same thing, right? Tremendous amount of effort, IT included, are put into the continuous process improvement, right? Which originated from Toyota, right? In Japan. So we are really the original industry for that. And of course, nowadays, most of the Kaizen will be enabled by technology and information, more and more so. One of the little case study, I'm not going to go into detail. One of the little case studies we're very proud of it. It's called the live scan. It's actually very simple, right? So because you go to the auto terminal, what do you see? You see people checking the terminal, receiving, and drive to the lot, then come back. And what you see in the past is they have a lot of papers. Actually, every car you have a paper. Then you put all this paperwork, finish the work, then come back to the office, type into the computer on the systems. There's a few problems, right? Number one is just time consuming. Everybody got pissed off. Number two is the time it takes, right? And the quality. When people are not in good mood, the quality suffers too. And so what we did is we take this mobile app, not as cool as your mobile app on the conference, but it's still pretty cool, right? We take this mobile app, give to each driver, so everyone has a tablet, that when they receive, they can scan the VIN from the vehicle, they can type in or drop down a few things, right? And then we also use it on the loading, unloading, and every single thing they scan right into the database. Then if there's real-time alerts and EDI, we can send this out to customer instantaneously. And we started in our large auto-rural terminals. It worked great. Then when we go to the small terminal, people say, hey, this doesn't work. I can't afford Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a pretty expensive infrastructure, right, to put in the large terminal. But for small terminal, so what we do is, let's be smart. Can we make it a cellular? Right? Go through mobile plan. So all of a sudden, you can apply to both the large terminal and the small terminal. So right now, this technology is already being deployed to a lot of our terminals. And we're keep doing more innovation on that. That's one thing we think it won't change. The other one is to go back to the quality, right? Quality is sacred in our industry. So, and then in our industry, we talk about safety too. Then in auto-rural, safety and the quality actually are related. Many times somebody have a safety incident, more often than not, the car got scratched or damaged. And there's no heartbreaking thing to happen in a terminal when a car, right, made it through the factory floor, survived that, travel thousands of miles through ocean, come to our terminal, then get damaged. So we're really doing everything we can to find ways to improve that. So one of the details today and as in the future is the car will auto-drive, roll on, roll off. Before that happened, it's really by people, right, drivers driving that. So one of the things we do is how do we create more environment for the dock workers to be highly successful, right? So one of the things we are experimenting is this driving training simulation. So for the new guys come in, they drive through that like a pilot, right? Driving through roll on, roll off the ship. So we're doing that. We think that we're pretty excited about this simulation effort. The other one we do is really come down to, for safety and quality, do you have a state-of-art management system to manage that? You have all the data, you can see trend, you can monitor, you can do real-time reports, share with customers, as well as internal operational improvement. So we put that in, and it worked out pretty good. Those are the kind of the big ticket stuff. Even the small things, LED glove, right? When people work in the inside of the ship, sometimes it's dark. You just can't see people, which create an occasion for accident. So put this LED glove, it helps a lot, right? So I think all these little things help too. On the supply chain visibility, it's the common stuff, right? It's a KPI dashboard for all the rural customers. We piloted with some of the customers to do it, and they love it, right? On the EDI data exchange, I think a Bill from SSA, right, this morning talked about ASN, Advanced Shipping Notice. I came from high-tech. ASN in high-tech industry, every company has done that, right? Right before you ship, a notice will send in real time to the relevant supply chain players. But today, even though the technology is there, it's already there on the dashboard, alerts, EDI, but I would say in auto, rural terminals, it's still adoption rate is pretty low. We need to do something about it, right? Because this is low-hanging fruit to drive up the real-time supply chain visibility. So those are some of the things around those key elements that we are doing today. Of course, we all come here. The session is for gear up for tomorrow. So the real interesting question is, how do we go from here to tomorrow? Right? We spend a lot of time thinking about that. I'm not going to actually go into specific technologies. We can chat later in the break on specific technologies. But what I really want to address is, from a high level, what are the macro, major areas as an industry we should focus on to drive breakthrough improvement to get ready for tomorrow? The first one, needed much better value chain collaboration. Over the past few years, right, I think the whole shipping industry, a lot of challenges. Auto is actually doing pretty well. But the bottom line is there's a lot of optimized unit cost across the board, It's fine, right? It's the natural thing to do, squeeze the unit cost. But the reality is you can only squeeze so many rounds, right? After a while, the easy opportunity is starting to run out. But I would argue a lot of waste still exists in the value chain. The only thing is, I think they are between us, except within us. So let me share with you a real example, okay? Many years ago, I was in Motorola, semiconductor. So I ran the e-commerce team. So we use Java, Oracle, built one of the most sophisticated website in that industry to customer can browse the product catalog, can quoting, shipping, right? Then do service request, aftermarket, so on and so forth. I'm very proud of it. My team spent a year build that. So then I spent time, go visit a customer, one of the largest electronics distributor. So they are my customer. And to my shocking surprise, I saw they have a department of 3 people. Their full-time job is to come to my website. I have hundreds of thousands of chips. Each chip, you have tons of documentation, pricing, technical document. That 3 persons' full-time job is to come to my website, download piece by piece, then put in their database, then display on their website. That's 2001, 16 years ago. So I'm asking everyone a question here. Do you think this kind of opportunity or waste exists in our industry today? Can you raise the red or green? Doesn't matter. Not as many as I think. Let me tell you why I suspect that waste exists. You know why? Because I talked to a lot of digital startups. Some of the digital startup, their main mission is to help some companies go to other companies' website better. That's a complete waste, because go back to my story 16 years ago. Once I realized what happened, we talked to the customer, we came back, we did a full EDI and a file transfer. It's all real time. Anytime there's a change on my product catalog, it will automatically feed into my customer in their database, displayed. Within a few months, that 3-person department is gone. So customer save time. In the meantime, it's good for me too. Why? Because I want my information to be accurate, to be fast, displayed on the distributor's information. So my view is this huge opportunity exists between the OEM, 3PL, transportation terminal, ocean carrier, to collaborate and identify where are the opportunities to drive dramatic improvement instead of only focus on within ourselves. That's number one. The other one is I have a lot of personal passion. It's just by training, I spent a lot of years doing all the operation research stuff. Nowadays, people call big data analytics. But I really believe it. Michael Dell actually made a quote, right? He said, digital, is just a fancy word, buzzword. Then everybody have different interpretations. But at the core of digital, what is it? It's really about all these new tools cranking out data at lightning speed, whether it's real-time time series data or old-time historical data, right? How do you take all this data and make something out of it? He thinks that's the core of digital. And for me, the main important message I want to convey to everyone here, I really believe in analytics is not just for Google, Facebook, or Amazon. I really believe it's for the rest of us. I've done it in other traditional manufacturing company. It works. Of course, the warning I want to give to everyone is I do believe it requires a little bit different mindset and a talent base. It's not your traditional way of doing IT and tool deployment, right? You need a certain skill sets. You need a certain ways to organize the project. Also, sometimes you need to have a different way to model, organize the efforts. The organizational structure matters too. For example, in my previous high-tech experience, we actually hired a data scientist, right? Built the whole gigantic department. I think that some large shipping lines in our industry are doing that too, hire like 50 PhDs. In post-America, we are very, value and cost conscious, right? So we want to find ways, how do we create all this value without spending a big amount of money. So we are looking at other ways, like crowdsourcing, right? Collaborating with university and other digital players to still create the same analytics capability for our customers. So those are the things we are actively exploring. But on big data analytics, my simple message, I really believe this journey just started. In our industry, we have not touched the surface yet. That's where the huge opportunity is. The other one is very dear to my heart. I think Travis already talked a lot about it, right? So because today you go to auto industry terminals, I think it's still pretty primitive in the most part. Even at a live scan, we feel good about, because we are still not tracking all the movement, right? In the terminal yet, and we are talking about potentially doing RFID. I think early in the morning there's a question on RFID, so on and so forth. But my naive question is, we are not handling a pile of metal who happen to drive. Nowadays, the vehicle is a digital hub itself. They know exactly where they are. They know exactly every single equipment status. They actually know how to park, and they know how to avoid accident. But are those digital capabilities today being used in the logistics side? I think that's the future. If we do more vertical collaboration, find ways to even tap into 1% of the digital capability of the smarter vehicles, I think it will make a dramatic improvement on the safety, quality, cycle time, and everything, operational performance, as well as supply chain visibility. So in the manufacturing, there's a notion called design for manufacturing, right? I don't think we need to change the vehicle design for logistics. We just need to use it. Use those digital features for logistics. So the last one I want to talk about is, of course, in Ports America, we operate all different lines of business. Auto is one major business. We also have a lot of container business. One thing I see, I don't know the audience feedback, but I really see there are tremendous amount of technology investment on the container side, right? From the equipment tracking, appointment system. Travis talked about the appointment system. It has been done a while back, right? Very sophisticated yard, gate, capacity modeling, analytics model, so on and so forth, as well as safety, quality, all those things. I think there's potential to take what we're doing on the container side and adapt to the auto side. Of course, it needs to be smart about it, because the container side sometimes is many, many millions of dollars invested on technology. So how do we take the core of it, right, without incurring the same bill, be extremely cost efficient, but still replicate some of those capabilities on the auto side? I think that's a huge opportunity for us. So to summarize, we just have to do something different, right? I think the easy opportunity is running out, and the whole digital, in terms of logistic auto industry disruption there, is just a golden opportunity for all of us in this room to make some drastic improvement. Before I talk about 4 things, right? Value chain collaboration, analytics, leverage digital vehicle, and the learning from container terminal. Before I hand off to the next speaker, I do like to do a quick survey to find out from the room. Each one just vote 1, okay? Raise the green tag. I'm going to ask each one. I want to see the room think which one has the biggest potential to drive improvement for finished vehicle logistic chains. So who thinks the first one? Value chain collaboration. Okay, that's a lot. Second one, analytics, big data. You can only vote 1, guys. Okay. All right. Leverage digital vehicle. Wow, that's the most. Learn from container terminals. This is the list. So I think the leverage digital vehicle got the number 1. Value chain collaboration and advanced analytics are number 2. Learn from container terminal is the distant 4th. Thank you very much.
I'll take that. Thanks, TQ. I'll take that. Thank you. So thanks very much, TQ. That was really interesting, and many different perspectives in terms of what digital disruption means and the different elements there that we should be looking at, and how, of course, we think differently, right, about and how to approach this. So I'd like to introduce next Christopher Kenmore, CEO from VNet, who's been working with ECG and provide some insights into some of the digital transformations that they're working on. He'll also bring Trish up during the presentation to talk about some of the things that they're working on with AIAG. Thanks, Chris.
Hi. Well, TQ, I'm here to answer your questions, especially on leveraging the digital vehicle. I'm Chris from VNet. We provide solutions for yard management, transport, and PDI, PPM, etc. But I'm here on behalf of the ECG. If you don't know who the ECG is almost the equivalent of the AIAG, except we in ECG don't have OEMs as part of our core membership. So just want to talk a bit more about what we're doing in the digitalization working group at the ECG. The digitalization working group was formed just over a year ago with 5 key aims. These are, the first one was for ECMR, which is basically a consignment note for road transport, for national and international road transport. Well, it's global, obviously, but we're trying to create a standard for making that electronic, for smoothing especially the customs border pass. Numbers 2 and 4 is really what we're going to be concentrating on, so I'll just skip that for the time being. The E-gate is number 3. This is electronic booking for trucks coming into compounds, into ports, principally to manage the capacity planning of trucks coming in. Just so they don't have sort of 10 or 15 trucks queuing outside, all ready to dump their vehicles in your yard, so they can come in and be sequenced correctly into the yard, also based on urgency. And number 5 is something we've already touched on this morning, cybercrime prevention. That is just another working group we've got working on that. So we're talking about telematics and how to create standards for using telematics and leveraging the digital aspects of the vehicle. This has really come about by a European mandate to have an e-call system in all new cars from April next year. So whenever an airbag is deployed or whenever the impact sensors are triggered, this will automatically send out an alert to the emergency services to come and find you. So it goes through the SIM card that you have in your vehicle, and with a GPS in your vehicle will immediately direct the emergency services to come and rescue you, hopefully. So what we want to do is, as you can read there, is really to leverage this telematics. Tracking and tracing is obviously really important to all of us. The visibility of the vehicle is crucial in creating efficiencies. We want to standardize RFID solutions, although we do believe that not so many people are interested in RFID these days, given the cost and also given that telematics are available from the vehicle, that RFID is going to become probably less import in our industry. Just one thing to note, despite me being here, the ECG does not promote any IT providers, so we are agnostic about the solution is. In the working group, we have 3 of the main providers in Europe in the working group who are just there to help create the standards so that we're all working from a common base. So we've had a couple of successful meetings this year. Really, it's actually kicked off. It's generated an awful lot of interest from OEMs, from LSPs, to get standards working together. So what we did was we sent out a questionnaire to a number of OEMs to ask them what they're looking for in logistics? What are the key factors they're looking for? So we got a ranking from the OEMs, and this was agreed, and I can share this with you another time if anyone wants to contact me or any of my colleagues. And we set up a dedicated working group just for creating the standards for leveraging the digital vehicle. So what are we going to try and do? We are trying to create a standard for the communication to and from the vehicles. One thing you'll see from my next slide is that the OEMs are not very keen for LSPs to have direct contact with the vehicle. So I'll just move quickly to that next slide. So what you can see here is what they want to do is have the vehicle communicate to an OEM's own servers, which will then communicate that information to a neutral server, and LSPs can communicate directly with that neutral server to and from the vehicle. So if I go back, so what we need to do is to create standardized messages so that when the communication goes to that neutral server, that all OEMs will communicate directly with that. So what can we hope to achieve? One of the things we're looking at is instead of routine maintenance cycles, you'll get an alert on your server, which will send out an alert to the operative in the field that this vehicle or this bunch of vehicles needs charging or needs refueling, or their tires need checking, usual LTSM levels. It may be two-way. We'd like it to be two-way. I think that there are a couple of OEMs who have opened up two-way communication, so it makes it so much easier if you've got a bunch of red vehicles of a similar make and model sitting in the yard, you know which one is the one that you have to take care of. And new functionality will replace a lot of the scanning vehicles, so that you can actually see where that vehicle is much more and identify it much more easily. And obviously, we can go a lot further beyond that. You can all use your imagination as to where we can go in the future with autonomous vehicles. So we're working in the ECG with a bunch of OEMs, ASEA, which is the European Association of Car Manufacturers, ODET, which is creating standards for automotive supply chain, and the CN, which is I think it's a grouping of 34 national standards bodies in Europe. So we don't have the luxury of being a single country like you here, so all these different nationalities have to come together, and so the CN is the grouping for that standardized body. So with CN, we're aiming to create a standard for the communication in telematics, and that obviously can expand into getting a global standard with ISO. As you can see, we have a number of co-workers in this group. ASEA, the manufacturing company, AIAG, of course, and Trish is going to talk a bit more about that. JAMA, which is Japanese manufacturers, VDA, which is the German manufacturers, and obviously ODET. So we're coordinating with all these bodies to make sure that we're all working together around the world, so that there's no point having sort of three different standards or many different standards as would have happened before. So Trish, do you want to say a few words? So we just met this morning, so this is our double act starting.
Thank you. What do I hit?
Just the green one, yeah, for the next one. You're already there.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Most of you, I hope to God, know who AIAG is, but under the scope of antitrust, we work to facilitate cross-functional committees for the improvement of processes in the industry. Blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is we work very closely with ECG in Europe, have for many years. We've created some global processes in the industry, like the damage claims reporting for finished vehicles, which is commonly known as the M22 document. We created the port quality assessment tool, which was based off of something created by originally the Port of Baltimore in QChat. It's a tool used by processors, stevedores, and ocean carriers to check the quality of their processes at the ports. And then we're also now launching finished vehicles visibility, which is one of our newest committees. It consists of two very important subparts, one being a rail congestion committee that is focused on trying to reduce congestion within the rail yards. But the one I was going to talk with you about today that sort of goes with the theme is the Connected Vehicle Work Group. We're going to launch that September 1st, and it is a subpart of the Finished Vehicle Visibility Committee. The point of this group in the U.S., and we will actually be having meetings with AIAG and the ECG groups together, but the point of the Connected Vehicle Work Group thinks is to identify specifics in the vehicles and then figure out how they can support supply chain management, improve supply chain management. You know, what's there? I certainly don't know. I don't build cars, I just move them. But, you know, is it track and tracing? Is it RFID? How do we help make the process of moving a vehicle from point A to point B through a connected vehicle better and easier for everybody, not just the OEM, also for the suppliers and the service providers. So that's basically the committee that we're launching. We are issuing an official call to action, which today is the first time we're going to do it right with you guys here. And we're looking for folks to volunteer to join these committees, especially the Connected Vehicle Committee. We're looking for OEM volunteers, engineers that are familiar with what's built into the vehicles, IT managers, supply chain managers. We need volunteers to make up this committee so that we can come out with a product, a good, solid product that works for everyone. So, you know, AIAG and a lot of committees are looked at as snooze fests. It's like, yeah, you're gonna create something standardized, blah, blah. I know, I used to be a supplier of services, and when I used to get the AIG emails, I would delete them because I was too busy. And so are you guys. But, if I may, these committees are meant to help you as well as your customers. You know, the better we work together, collaborate in the industry, the better we're all going to be in the end. Coming to and going from work every day and not collaborating with the guy next door is silly. So I'm asking you to give it some thought, and really, if you know anybody or if you're interested, come on board, because we're going to make a difference, and I would love to see each of you have a voice at the table. So in closing, if you would, hold up your green card.
Or red.
No, just your green cards, please. Green cards up. Everybody up. If you want to join a committee at AI. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Very much. Thank you very much, Trish. Thank you very much, Chris. So, the perfect opportunity for you to engage, get involved, start working on future plans. You know who to call? Trish. So, no, I know, they know who to call. So next up, last but certainly not least, Mr. Charles Franklin, Export Manager from American Honda.
Tough job. I'm the last guy after lunch, so you're already nodding from the good lunch, and then you had all these smart people, so I'm going to see if I can figure some way to fill the void. If you notice in the middle of the slide, you'll see the gear, and that's just picking up after the the title, but I'm going to point out why I use that particular gear later on. But you see it's working very well. And so we got to keep things moving well, but there's some significance here. So just a quick agenda, and some of you saw me speak before, and you may have heard me ask you what's my job, and I'm going to probably, every time you see me, I'm going to put that up there because I want you to understand what my job is. Okay, damage-free logistics, best prices, fastest delivery? No. My job is to sell Honda products. So when you develop technology, when you find new processes, when you do it, if it can't directly show me how it's going to help us sell more product, don't tell me about it. And then maybe you might want to stop working on it and work on something that's going to help me sell my product. If you can help me sell my product, I have funds for you and I have time for you. But if it can't do that, I'm really not interested. So keep that in focus as you develop things for tomorrow. Okay, so just high level, because I know I'm an OEM, you want to know what we're doing. Okay, so this year I'm going to ship over 130,000 cars built in North America to about 69 global destinations. That's about $3 billion worth of product, and I'll spend about $90 million doing it. So I know that's kind of what you guys are interested. So what piece of that 90 million, it depends on if you can help me sell some product. Okay, so as I blow through this side, this just shows our history and kind of where we're going for exporting. So you can see back in 14, and 14 was a key year for Honda export. We became the first Japanese manufacturer to be a net exporter from North America, and we've remained that until today. And as you can see, from 2014, it was just over 70,000 units, and this year we're going to do about 130, and we will stay over 100,000 units, at least in the future that I can tell you about at this point. Now I'm going to switch wheels, and I'm going to give my colleague here, Chuck Kendig, a little credit for this. I had a different presentation, and I had to change it. And I hope that it lives up to your expectations. But when was the last time you were inspired? And then when's the last time you inspired someone? Okay, and I have the benefit, I do a lot of community service, so I have opportunities to inspire people. But last week I was inspired because of the guest speaker that Chuck had at the Honda Logistics Conference. And so some of you were there, and it was amazing because it inspired me to rethink what I was doing. And his name was Brian Benstock. And for those of you there, forgive me for regurgitating what you saw, but Brian is looking at Amazon and relating it back to his dealership. And a couple of points he pointed out that was unique to me. One, he says that Amazon will soon be $1 trillion company. And think about this, to count to 1 trillion, if you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it would take you 30,000 years to give you an idea how much money that is. Okay, so we're talking about some amazing deals. And so what he's doing, he's creating Amazon. And the key word is frictionless transaction. So if you remember, and if you were in Huntington Beach, and I brought up, and I was very proud because he brought up his Alexa model. And I spoke about Alexa, and actually a gentleman stopped me at lunch and said since then he actually bought an Echo. But at any rate, he's saying, how do I make this frictionless? So now he has an Amazon page where you can buy a car from home. You can click on the site. If you want to test drive it, he'll bring it to your house. If you have service, his service is available 24/7. He will come before you go to bed, pick your car up, fix it, bring it back to you in the morning. So it's frictionless. So how can you not use that guy for your service? So again, he's rethinking the auto industry where everybody said, you want to buy a car, you got to go to the dealer, the guy's going to kick the tires, you got to do this, credit check, all this other crap. He's saying you don't have to do that. Click, 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 I'll bring it to you. You need service, click, I'll come and fix it. So think about that. So when we're thinking about the future, instead of just trying to make what we do more efficient, maybe we just want to change what we do altogether. And so we got to step back sometimes and see. And I don't have that idea. Like I said, I got inspired Thursday. I think quick, but not that quick. So I'm working on it. So again, this was my presentation back in March in Huntington Beach. And I brought up the Alexa and how the Echo, you can now turn your heat on, you can buy a pizza, you can do so many things. Okay, again, now Amazon bought Whole Foods. And another keynote that the gentleman brought up, they got Whole Foods for free. because when they made the announcement that they were going to buy Whole Foods, their stock shot up more than the price they paid for Whole Foods. So basically, they paid for it from the money they made from the announcement. Amazing. So how do we do that with logistics automobile? Okay, so this is what I brought up. Most of you in this room won't like this. But I brought this up in Huntington Beach, and I'm bringing it up again, and it will impact me. But one day, we'll click it. We'll say, Lexa, I need to ship 2,500 cars from Marysville to Jeddah. And she's going to do it. I'm not going to be calling the rail company. I'm not going to be calling the port processor or whatever. She's going to say, have them at this location by this time, and I'll get them. And none of us want to do that. But you think about it, this is going to be an opportunity, because if they're representing all OEMs, they can maximize capacity on all the trucks, on all the trains, on all the ports, and all the vessels, and coordinate it, and you don't need to have to guess how many trains or rail cars I need here, how many trucks I need there. It can happen. So you got to think that way. So we got to change our game. How do we make Facebook, Amazon, or Apple out of this map? Because everybody has the same thing. We build them, we park them, we move them, we ship them, we park them. So let's not just simply say, make this old process more efficient. We might just want to throw it away. But we got to step back from simply grinding that wheel. And that's where I'm pointing at this gear. That's a perfectly working circle within its world. And it's not having any impact outside of itself. And that's what we're all guilty of. And just a real high level, and this could be other ports, it could be other situations, but if you look at 3 ports on the East Coast that I'm going to point out, and they're all very good ports, I have great processors, I have great partnerships with all of them, but they all work within themselves. Okay, but when I ship from one to another to another. If anywhere between there something happens, it messes me up. And then that vessel comes back, but they don't talk. And so I actually have already spoken to a few of the ports, and I was trying to have a meeting while I was here to say, let me have Veracruz and Baltimore and Jacksonville and Brunswick meet and create some communication, because it's in the same vessel. And then after I get these 3 talking, I still have trucking companies, rail companies, and all of these people that I need to move my car. But everybody's saying, I want to be the best vessel company. I want to be the best port. I want to be the best processor. But they don't want to work with each other because they're so busy focused on themselves. And I need the whole thing to work. And in fact, and some of those folks in this room, at 2 of the ports, when I had some issues, I had all of them in the room. I had the port processor, the vessel company, the rail company, everybody in the room. I said, okay, here's the problem. Don't point saying, well, he did. I said, I need to move these cars. Let's figure this out. So again, going back to TQ's question, the value chain collaboration is the first thing, at least for me. I got to figure out how to go it. Now, some other things, starting simple. It also starts at home. I need to know how to build a shippable car. So if you have information that enables me to ship my car or makes it easier for you to handle my vehicle, you need to tell me. Because our design engineers are trying to figure out how fast, how fuel efficient, how light, how beautiful, all of these things. They're not thinking about how it's going to get from Marysville to Jeddah. And so then they give me this car with this much ground clearance. As you can see how much front end and rear end clearance. They have paint that's some of the best paint in the world after 60 days. The cure time is 60 days, but they want me to ship it tomorrow. You understand? So I need you to tell me, Charles, this is what I need you to secure on my train, on my truck, on my vessel. This is the conditions at my port. This is what I need to fasten it. And then we, as all OEMs, can communicate to our engineers, while you're designing this pretty fast, lightweight, cost-effective vehicle, give me the things that I need to move it without hurting it. Okay? So these are some things I see for the future. Another thing is we are constant conflict management every day because there's no collaborative. You know, and I'll cost manage it. I want to manage my costs. You want to make as much money as you can moving my car. The other thing, all of you in this room, I want more of your cars. but then you don't have enough rail cars, or you don't have enough trucks, or you don't have enough space for them at the port. You want to do more services for me at the port, but then if you do more services for me at the port, then now they're parking instead of moving, and so the other cars that are being built don't have a place to park until you finish servicing them. Okay, so we got to put all of these things into the discussion and figure out how do we make it work, because we're not working together. You know, as you go back, right now everybody wants exclusivity. I want all the Hondas, okay? But when you do that, if your vessels are full or your vessels or trucks are late and I need to move my cars because of my exclusive contract, I can't move them over here. And so that's why I say we need this kind of Apple or Amazon thing in the sky that can say, hey, there's some empty stuff over here. These guys have a partnership. When they're full, they can move them out here. They both make some profit, and we can switch it around later. So again, I don't have the answers, but I know the problems because every day I'm the problem guy. I'm the complaint department, Panda. So again, we got to stop being internally focused, and we got to come more industry focused, where everything's connected, everything's moving, and realize where our part is in that industry and how do we work it. Make it easy, make it frictionless, okay? Be inspirational. Again, don't just go and say, how do I make a hamburger better, faster? I just recently watched that McDonald's movie on the airplane. I forget the name, Franchise, I think is the name of it. And it's pretty amazing how the original McDonald's guys modernized making a hamburger, okay? Be collaborative. Don't just think about, I'm going to be the best port processor. Who do you touch? And you can bring back to me and say, hey, Charles, you know what? I have a great idea for your trucking guys. If they can do this, I'm good. Let's do it. Industry focus a little bit, not just self-focus, customer focus. When you're designing these softwares and these processes and things, when was the last time you called us? More than likely, you show up to my desk and you got, hey, Charles, I got this new software, man. It's the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, okay, first question, will it help me sell a car? If not, don't show it to me. So when you bring it and say, hey, Charles, let me show you the software. It will help you sell a car. Buy this. I'm home. Be bold. Don't be safe. You got to go for it. Going back to Brian, his goal was to double his sales in a flat market. Most people say that's ridiculous, but he said, I'm not going to change the market. I'm going to change how I operate within this market. And that's all I'm saying we got to do. And we got to be ready, because when it works and when it changes, you ask for it. It's like I always tell my daughter, be careful what you pray for. And so be ready for that. So with that, thank you for tolerating me. I'm not selling this book. I haven't fully read it. I just bought it. But this was the book that Brian brought up, and he was just saying that it changed his life. And so I'm looking to change mine too, hopefully for the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you. So, interesting discussions there, interesting presentations. I think there's some common themes there running through there, and I think the main one is, we need to start thinking differently, and collaboratively. So, I think there's some discussion points that we've still got time to have some questions. So, I'd like to firstly throw it out to the audience to see if there's any questions or any comments from the audience. I guess not yet. You're all still thinking differently.
No, there's one over there.
Oh, there's one at the back there.
Charles, what was the last great idea that was brought to you that helped you sell cars? You know what I mean? Like, how often do they come to you? 'Cause I'm working on one, but I don't have any yet. So what was the last one that was a good one?
Well, you first, I'll answer the second. You said, how often did it come to me? Not often enough. I'm hesitant. I don't like using I, because I believe the last one we brought to ourselves, and it was focusing on our vandalism issues. And like I said, anybody doing business in Mexico is dealing with vandalism. And we came up with some ideas, worked with some of our suppliers, and I'm happy to say that 7 months straight, we've had zero vandalism for export vehicles. And give you an idea of that, it's probably about 3,500 units. Well, really 4,000 units a month. So every day I knock on wood. When I don't have a table, I tap up here. But that's the best idea, and it was simple. And to be quite honest, and I spoke to this before, in changing the way of thought. If you keep going down this street, and every time you go down that street, you get robbed. And so you hire a bodyguard, and you go down there, and you still get robbed. And you buy a gun, and you go down there, and you still get robbed. Why not go a different way? You know, let the bad guy have that alley. And so basically that's what we did. We just moved the way we were moving the cars. And so far, like I said, and that's actually marble. Knock on wood, we haven't lost a car. Actually, that's not true. We had 3 vandalisms. Some kids threw a rock off a bridge and broke some windows, but I live with that. And again, it was simple, but you got to realize I was losing 3,500 cars a year to vandalism.
Jesus God.
So.
I think this question applies to everybody. In terms of what are we doing differently within our jobs? How are we assessing what we do? Maybe I'll bring this back to Travis and some of the things that you're working on within the Maritime Administration. Of course, you're working on the marine part of this, but you're also collaborating with road and rail and looking at, of course, building, and there's a lot of investment as was mentioned earlier today. There's $1 trillion worth of investment going into infrastructure. How are you and the Department of Transport thinking differently about how you're future-proofing the infrastructure that needs to be built and that's going to help move products in the USA?
Yeah, we have limited resources at the Department of Transportation. I think a lot of what the administration has been proposing is to bring in private sector dollars doing private-public partnerships. As far as movement of vehicles, I think one of the things that we're looking at down the road, we're really interested in those connected vehicles. How do you get fewer drivers in the vehicles? Can you, initially we expect that maybe the driver in the front vehicle, driver in the rear vehicle, and how many can you have in the middle that are just talking to each other and staying in a safe environment. There's a lot of things that will go into that, but we really see that the technology is coming quicker than you can imagine, and how do we stay out of the way without not protecting the public and creating a safe environment, a secure environment where you don't have those autonomous vehicles operating under someone else's control, I guess, is one of the things. But there's so many opportunities. We're trying to do a base assessment of where the technologies are at now, trying to expand the utilization of that at different ports, and make it easier to implement it at places where it's not happening. And so those are really our focus areas, is to do more with the same amount or with less, and try to keep the progress happening.
Interesting. And you mentioned the funding program for ITS. This is a separate program from the Tiger.
Correct.
grants.
There's the Tiger grant applications that sometimes they do support port activities, and then the Fast Lane, which has been replaced with the Infra program. I always forget the acronym. It's ATC-MTD. It's a program that's available specifically and eligible entity are port authorities or public port authorities, but it's the Advanced Transportation Technologies and Congestion Management and Deployment Program. And it's currently funded at $60 million a year. We just completed the second round of the Notice of Funding Opportunity in June. That was notified, and we're in the process of evaluating those proposals that came in. But they're, I think the maximum size for that was $12 million. We expect to have probably 5 to 10 projects that will be selected in this round.
Okay. There's another round of assessments that will happen.
Right,
further down.
it's an annual program through the duration of the FAST Act, so we'll have 2 more years under this current legislation.
Great, fantastic. So of course, if there's any ports out there that are interested in talking to Travis about this, please, continue the discussion with him. And again, of course, there's money available. So, if there's any questions from the floor, I think Marty's got a question there.
Yeah, Marty Kolbeck with Auto Warehousing. The question is for the panel, and everyone brought up great ideas as far as data sharing and coming together. Doesn't that have to start with the manufacturers who have their own proprietary systems, who have to this point in time been unwilling to bend, change, or share in any kind of a format, so that the entire industry, all of the processors, the shipping lines, can look at that data, understand that data, and make that data work for them? Are the manufacturers ready to change? I guess that's my question.
Shall I take that one?
Yeah, Charles, go ahead.
I guess since I'm a manufacturing representative, first of all, going back, if you tell me how sharing what information with you will help me sell cars. Okay, again, so you can't just say, hey, give me your data. I know, but I'm just saying, you can't just say, give me your data. You have to give me a defined process in what you're going to do. An example, and I think I spoke of this 3 or whatever, how many years ago when I was in Baltimore, something that was done in the passenger airline industry. A software was developed with some algorithms that helped the transportation providers evaluate if they were profitable with their contracts. So let's just say you give Honda a discount of 20% and GM another discount of 15 or whatever based on their volumes, and you just give those discounts, but there's no real evaluation process to tell you if that's profitable. Yeah, your vessel's full now, but it's full of highly discounted vehicles, so you might have made more money last year with less discounts, okay? So if once you do that, then, and in the airline industry, it's a requirement. If you have a contract with any of the major airlines for your corporate travel program, you have to put that data into this algorithm so that they can evaluate it. So that's one side. The other side is the buyer has access to that data so that they can see how they can better manage their travel. If I use these routes instead of those, then I get a better deal. Now, what you've created is a unified database. So I didn't give my data to anybody else. I gave it to somebody that's helping me manage my business, and it helped the transportation providers manage theirs. And so you got 3 benefits from doing something like that. I'm not a software developer. Honda's not a software developer. We're building cars. But somebody who is in that, or maybe Department of Transportation could create that. I also shared with Nemish that there's opportunities that if they were to come out with possibly, let's say, a RFP platform. And so there's just a standardized RFP if you're doing a request for proposal for trucking, rail, whatever, and people could put their data in there. The transportation providers could receive that data in the same. It makes it much easier for them to respond and to manage it to everybody gets a deal. And you're also at the same time creating a database that won't be shared saying this is what Honda's doing, this is what GM, or this is what Toyota's doing. They're saying next year or during that bid period, the OEMs for North America plan to build this many cars and ship them to these destinations through these ports. And then you could manage how you're going to support that. So there's ways to do it, but if you just come and say, hey, you guys, just give me your data, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I want to jump in at a comment. First of all, a disclaimer. I was just so excited to see the other panelists hammering the same point, right? The industry standards, collaboration, and you actually call it design for shipping. I was alluding to that. So it's a great question. If I just draw from what I learned in other industries, right? I think it's to Charles' point, it's not that easy, right? In other industries today, I talk about a lot of the point-to-point, B2B, according to certain standards, is already done, right? From design, every single design change, to manufacturing, shipping, to repair, after service, is already done. But I don't see, I think there are a few different dimensions. Number one, this so-called hub where everybody put all their data there. I just don't see that happening. Not in other industries I work with in the high tech, semiconductor. A lot is more the value chain collaborate, right? From the OEM to the dealer and anywhere between. And maybe there's a consortium to do that. And we need to be really smart about it, because even if you ask a Honda or anybody to open the data, you cannot see it. What's the point of all this design data? It has no value to the logistic shipping process, right? So we need to talk about what are the real data elements needed, and how do we immediately collaborate, create immediate value. Because if it's a 3-year project, nobody sees any return. Charles will walk away right away. He wants to know what's the impact next quarter, next year. So I see there's a way to do vertical integration, drive rapid value, and let it create a positive cycle. So that's one side. The other side, I think, is going back to what Chris and Tish is saying, is some sort of industry standards, right? That's a more consortium. Then create a baseline for all the companies to use. And of course, typically, the company will adapt from there, customize, that's fine. But you already did 80% of work, which is going to be a great foundation for people to collaborate. But there are just tremendous amount of incentive. If I quote Cisco eHub 2001, right? They want everybody to put the data there. It's just very hard to do. So what in other industries eventually end up with is the deep vertical integration to take all the waste out along the chain. For example, in retail, P&G and Walmart, right? That's one model. You don't have a retail hub where every retailer put all the data there because there's too much conflict of interest. And it's going to be too expensive to do anyway for any meaningful return in the reasonable time frame.
But you know, Marty, if I may, I think I really believe this now that I've been with AIAG for a little while. I do believe that if we would get off our chairs and work together collectively, collaborate, let's define what it is we need, you know, and then if we have the OEM's commitment and they're in the pot with us, then we come up with a product that says, all right, this is what we need. Is blockchain the solution? What's the solution? But I think we first need to get together and create a guideline, a document, I don't even care what you call it, that says, here's what we need in order to improve today's processes and create tomorrow's processes. Otherwise, we're just individually going to an OEM and saying, I need your data. Well, okay, people in hell want ice water, but they're not going to get it. So I really think that's the bottom line. We've got to work together, cross-functionally, under an organization that offers that service.
Well, to answer your question directly, Marty, they were, with the ECG, I mean, obviously, we're a bunch of LSPs, and we were sort of thinking, I mean, are any OEMs going to join us? And we were quite surprised. The first meeting we had on this subject, more than half the room were OEMs. We immediately got the backing of ASEA coming into it, which is the majority of the European car manufacturers, which obviously includes American and Japanese companies too. And they've all jumped in, and they've all been highly, highly supportive of going through. The VDA is having a meeting specifically on this subject in order to join in with this collaboration, so that we can actually, it's not a question of taking data from any OEMs, it's actually creating a standard for the delivery of the data.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh, there's a question at the front, please. We'll just wait for the mic.
She's running.
Thank you for the comments. So specifically, I think it was Travis, your presentation, you were kind of showing the model for the connected vehicle, and the OEs feed into their own database that goes to a neutral database. I think that was your presentation. The question that came up, I think on Thursday in a meeting. So to make that a reality, the connected vehicle part too, right, a reality, which would help all of our logistics service providers. we still have to have a standard for like a DSRC unit, I suppose. But more importantly, we have to have, at least in the U.S., we have to have the FCC approve the 5.9 gigahertz spectrum sharing. And we don't seem to be anywhere near that, or there seems to be no movement on that since the FCC began review in 2016. Any insights on when that's going to happen?
I can't speak for the American market.
Anything from the DOT?
Nope. I don't have any.
That's right, that has to happen before we
Yeah.
get there.
And Chuck, I think that we're at risk of losing that bandwidth, or that if we don't utilize it soon.
Okay, I think there's it's an interesting discussion, of course, the different parameters to what we're talking about in terms of connected cars, autonomous driving. When will it happen? What are the first adapters to autonomous driving? Will it be taxis? Will it be logistics? Who's going to make that first move? And of course, again, it comes back to how do we think differently? How do we create those ideas, and how do we collaborate to make those things happen? So I think there's some interesting discussions there. I think we'll wrap up now. I'd like to say thanks very much to the panel here. I think we've had an interesting discussion. I think there's a clear opportunity to collaborate, come together with the industry through whether it's government, the different aspects here can come together. You've got all the people here in the audience here, so let's make something happen. Thanks to the panel. Thank you very much. So there's teas and coffees again, and we'll come back here for the final session where we'll have another great panel discussion and some lively debate as well. Thank you very much.